also, when it comes to the whole 20-80 rule, that only 20% of men are wanted by 80% of women, and how y'all don't get any matches and don't get any dates through dating apps. I'm assuming this rule applies to women that are 25 and younger, right? Because you've told us that no one's going to want us once we're over 25, once we're over 30.
I don't really know what she's getting at here. I think that at any age, most women would want to find the best mate. And that's not going to suddenly change when they hit the age of 25 or 30. Saying that though, what does tend to happen as people get older is that they lower their standards a little. But this is true for both men and women. When guys online say things like, "No man's gonna want a woman who's 30 or a woman who has children," anyone with any common sense knows that this isn't the case in the real world. Even if a woman had 10 kids by 10 different men, I'll bet you good money that she'll be able to find a guy who's willing to take all that on. Now, will this be the man of her dreams? Unlikely, but it's not entirely impossible.
So I'm assuming that the dating pool that you're drawing from is only women that, let's say, are under the age of 30. So it would make sense then that only 80% or that 80% of women under 30 would only want 20% of men, because you're drawing from a smaller pool. There's much less women, if we're looking at the grand scheme of things, that are under the age of 30. But if we're looking at all women, including the women that are over the age of 30, then it sounds like people do want us over the age of 30, and you guys are the ones who have trouble getting women to want you regardless of what age you are.
I think when people are having this conversation about the 80-20 rule, they're way too rigid with things. Life's a lot messier than that, which is why I prefer to just say that it's a minority of men that women find highly desirable. Now, what that number is exactly, I don't know, and it's pretty hard to tell, which is why you shouldn't live or die by it. Anyway, kinda like I said before, while women over the age of 30 still want the best man they can get, they're more willing to adjust their standards as it'll give them a better chance at meeting someone. Only people who are terminally online think that men won't date women over the age of 30. It happens all the time. Your average guy doesn't have that many options when it comes to dating, so they're not going to turn a woman away just because of her age. Now, when a woman's edging towards her 40s, maybe guys would consider it a little more, especially if they don't have kids but want to have a family.
You see how no matter what argument we use here, there's always a fallacy within it? Because there is an inevitable and inescapable truth in all of these arguments, and it's the truth that you guys do not want to accept. Men have been able to get women in the past because they have used coercion and violence and control. Now that those kinds of tools are not as applicable in today's dating market, and women have the ability to provide for themselves, and they have the ability to abstain from getting married and having children, y'all are having an issue dating because we no longer have to be forced to be with you.
I think it's wrong to just say that men have been able to date in the past because of coercion, violence, or control, because while that might have been the case in some instances, it wasn't the majority. When women talk like this, they make it sound like men are unhinged animals who are just waiting for their chance to abuse women. But if this is how they think, it makes sense as to why they'd choose to hang out with a bear in the forest. Now it's true that women are able to provide for themselves more so than any other time in our history. Their standards for what they want in a man haven't changed. And that's one of the things that's making dating a lot harder. Since the majority of women still want a guy who's making the same or more than them, it only makes sense that women who are thriving in their careers are finding it a little harder to meet the kind of man they genuinely want. Because while they're looking for a guy who's on their level, the guys who are on their level aren't that hung up on how much their partner makes, which gives them more options when it comes to dating. And while high-earning guys aren't struggling when it comes to getting women, the average man is, because it's very competitive out there. And with so many options being available to women, they're able to choose the best of the best. So guys who aren't all that ambitious or financially well off may have a tougher time.
That's the truth. So you're going to have to step up and provide more to the dating market if you want a partner. That's just it. That's it. Period. End of conversation. You are going to have to figure out ways to do more and be more to appeal to women. And no, that doesn't just have to do with money. That has to do with being emotionally intelligent. That has to do with being funny. That has to do with being attractive and taking care of yourself and having some kind of beauty standard that you hold yourself to, the same way that women have had these impossible beauty standards to hold ourselves to in order to find a mate.
See, when she talks about providing more, what she's talking about is money, even though she goes on to say that there are other things too. And the reason I say this is because whenever I hear women talk about what they're looking for in a man, money is always the first thing that comes up. Everything else comes after that. Now, I'm not saying that every woman's looking for a dude who's making 6 figures or more, but being with a man who's got his finances in check is super important. And the beauty standards she's talking about aren't something I've ever seen men put a huge focus on. When you're not engaging with people online, you'll find that in the real world, guys aren't out here looking for supermodels. And in fact, they're into a wide variety of body types. Gender roles are pretty much being pushed out of the game. And there's a lot of pressure on guys to do more and provide more, which honestly is leading to a lot of stress in young men who just don't feel like they'll ever be good enough. And it's funny, but women like this will also say that society shouldn't put so much pressure on men to perform, because we're living in a world that's more equal now. So men shouldn't feel like the weight of the world is resting on their shoulders.
And historically, for women finding a mate meant finding and securing herself resources because there were no other way to find or secure resources. Y'all want a mate just because you want a mate. It's not because you need to secure resources for yourself. It's because you can't fathom not having a mate. Because when you do not have a mate, when you do not have a woman in your life, you become a threat to yourself and to others. That's the issue here. This is a skill issue. This is a skill issue that you need to address. This is your fucking problem.
She's right about women wanting to find a guy who was able to provide her with resources in the past. But men don't want a mate for the sake of it. Just like women, men want a mate so they can reproduce. After all, that's the whole reason we're here. It's like people forget that sometimes. And while I agree that men are vulnerable to things like self-deletion and even violence against others if they're isolated for too long, this isn't solely the result of not being able to find a mate. There are a lot of factors that lead into it, such as a lack of support, a lack of ties to the community, and the ever-changing list of what's expected of them. Funnily enough, being able to attract women does take some sort of skill, and it's not something that every guy can just learn. And some men may never feel comfortable enough to approach a woman at random. Not everyone's built like that. What would be helpful is if there were legit programs out there that could help men become more comfortable around women. And I'm not talking about that pickup artist shit, because for most guys, I don't think that stuff will ever work out if they don't already have that natural instinct when it comes to attracting women. Anyway, guys, drop your thoughts in the comments and let me know what you think.